Yeah,
Abundantly
yeah,
loved.
yeah,
You are
yeah.
abundantly loved. Welcome to Abundantly Loved Podcast with your host, Gwendolyn Malika Miller.
Hey, you guys, and welcome to Abundantly Love Podcast. And thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Gwendolyn Miller, or Gwendolyn Malika Miller. And over these past months or weeks, basically, I've been talking about denial and ways to overcoming denial and overcoming mistrust was on the first season in order for us to grow deeper in intimacy with God. And on the last season, I interviewed a friend of mine to come on talk about her life and ways that she's overcome mistrust to help her to grow deeper intimacy with God. And today I'm inviting my other friend, Maryum Opa, to come on, Miss Maryum Opa, to come on to the podcast to share her story about overcoming denial or mistrust in order for her to grow deeper intimacy with God. So as you guys listen, you can take notes, and I pray that this impacts your heart. Welcome, Maryum.
Hi, thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome, girl. It's so good to see you. I'm so grateful we get this time to just talk. You guys, let me tell you a little about Miriam. Miriam has been my friend. When I talked about finding someone to walk with on your path, finding a trusted person, like a safe person that you want to walk with, that you're able to express yourself with and be vulnerable to share your thoughts with and all those things. This is my person.
Thank you. Yes. And you have been mine. You have been mine in my many darkest, but even the greater, brighter areas. We have friends who kind of walk with you in the valley, but then also are standing with you on those mountaintops. That's where
Yes.
Mika stands.
Yes, 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 girl. So today, Miriam is going to share her story a little bit about her. But before we get started, Miriam, I want you to tell people a little bit about you and what God has been teaching you so far in this season.
Okay. I am Maryum Opa. I am born and raised in Brooklyn. I currently live in Harlem. I am a disciple of Christ for the past a little over 30 years. I'm a community advocate. I have a degree in organizational psychology, a master's degree in organizational psychology, a bachelor's in sociology. I am a human person. I'm a person who would love to study people and live among them, see what makes them tick. And I also realized that that is the very thing that Jesus did. He loved people, and he wanted to. I think he already knew what made them tick. He wanted to make sure that they understood their road, their purpose. And as I understand mine, I also want to make sure that people are not, what would I say, living life just being tossed around, and that they're living also with a purpose. I am a community leader. I run community programs throughout Harlem that help impact the marginalized and the people who are in the greatest need in our community. I am married of 19 years, and I have two kids, one 17 and one 12. Um, they are, when people say you wear your hearts on your sleeve, those are my hearts. I wear them on my sleeve. And I think most of what I do is to make sure that I leave everything in a better place for them so that they could be um, safer, more protected, and also guided by the Spirit.
Yeah, and you have been doing amazing work, Miriam. I
Thank you.
admire everything that you're doing and the people that you are helping and impacting. Like right now in this season, how do you think, what do you think you're growing in right now in this season with you and your relationship with God?
I think God is teaching me to up the ante on how I love people.
Yes,
And
good.
people can, you can love people through prayer, you can love people through service, but there's a time where to love people by follow up, even people who don't, you feel like, don't deserve your time, right? Like people who have been mean. I am learning how to even love my enemies
Right.
in ways where it looks abnormal to people. So just recently, I have um, let me just see how much can I share? Well, I have a neighbor who suffers from alcoholism and or suffered from alcoholism. She's definitely been in recovery for a while. and but she still has it has done something to her. It, because it does any type of drug kind of messes with your mind, and you can correct me, it messes with your mind and messes with how you think about things. So even if you're recovering, you still have the symptoms of an alcoholic. Like there are things that you do, you go, this is not normal behavior, it's not a normal reaction. um, and so and there was a few cases where my neighbor friend, and I do say that seriously because she is a friend of mine, has put my children in precarious situations. um, she's taken them out to restaurants, and she has sons of her own, so we kind of grew raised our children together. And she she has gotten drunk at the restaurant, and then the bartender had to call, me, the parent, or her husband, to come get her because she was inebriated. And
Wow.
many times people have said, cut her off, right? Like, she's put your kids in danger. She's done. And it's been like, after the second time, I had to say, your your mental illness, because that's what she has. Your mental illness is
Yeah.
affecting my kids, and I can't have you around the family much. Um, and so at this point, I realized that she is also still in need. Our kids are being raised together, and her battle is different, but it still affects her family. And and one day she has called me over, and I've had friends tell me to, like, don't respond, cut her off, leave her alone. And I realized that what she needs is, um, she has a NA, she has a AA, groups. She needs someone who's going to love her differently. And I don't
Mhm.
love her differently. Like, I'm not showing up to be her savior. I can't save her,
Mhm.
but I can show her how to be saved. Right?
Mhm.
This is not the step program that she's used to. Um,
Mhm.
so she's been thanking me for showing up, thanking me. But even my husband looks at me and goes, "I don't understand why you even give her any time." Um,
Mhm.
and I truly believe that if God has given you time, like been given another day
Mhm.
to see her children, given another day to whatever, pay her bills, and she has
Mhm.
another day to receive the grace of God.
Right.
And this is just recently that a lot of stuff has happened.
Right. Mary, I need to ask you this because one thing as a therapist, I talk about with my clients is mindfulness, right? And with mindfulness practices, it's about learning how to have compassion with self and learning how to see self through lenses of love and kindness in the way that God sees you. And a lot of people struggle with that. They struggle with seeing themselves as worthy or seeing of themselves through the lenses of how God sees them because they see themselves as skewed and different things like that. And it blocks them from really seeing other people because they see people through those lenses of judgment. The same way they judge themselves, they will judge other people. And you're at this point of wanting to love people and wanting to give and all those things. But I'm wondering, what did you have to overcome in you for you to begin to see yourself through those lenses of love in order to give it out to other people? Because in order for you to do that with someone else, you had to do it first with you. So what do you think that has been for you?
So I, even before becoming a disciple, even before a Christian, I felt like I was worthy of something. I think I was just I was one of those people, even at a very young age, I was able to count my blessings. I knew that there was something better and different, not just about me, but about just life. And
Yeah.
so some people walked around being able to count their burdens and count the problems that they had. I I remember specifically being like 8, 7, 8 years old, thinking, like, God, you ain't done like this. And I grew up in a very, like, there's been abuse. Um, there's been a lot of displacement in my life. Um, the saying, God don't play about me. That's
Yeah.
how I think I felt at a very, very young age. Like, God don't play about me. And I think
Mhm.
you're very right. How I can give is definitely how I felt like was given to me. So I'm the oldest of nine in Brooklyn. And I felt like there were parameters in my life. Like God had built the barriers to kind of protect just not just me, but
Mhm.
all of my siblings.
Mhm.
And we grew up like 80s, 90s. I mean, it was crazy. Gangs and we've never got my mother. I don't know what my mother did in her past life, but the amount of respect and protection that we received so that we were always taken care of. And not just by
Mhm.
food, but also by the streets.
Mhm.
And um and my mother always said, do unto others like you make sure, like she really believed in the law of reciprocity. And
Yeah.
so that even the level of giving, how much my mother bends and how flexible she's been to take care of other people. She had 9 kids of her own by three
Yeah.
different men, like three men. I had three dads, 9 kids
Mhm.
of her own, 3 men, and still took other people's children in growing up.
Yeah.
Uh, I truly believe that God had not stopped playing about me. Like he never stopped. He was definitely allowing me to, and it doesn't mean my life wasn't easy. We understood hindsight, there was some poverty, but the reality is when you're so rich in love and when you're so rich in love and I'm sorry, when you're so rich in love and family, laughter, protection, you felt the wealth. There was a different type of wealth given.
Mhm.
Because we are also a very happy family. Like our family is very like there's always an abundance of laughter and
Mhm.
even through the trauma. I mean, there's a lot of trauma, and so, yes, I do believe that wholeheartedly when I think of Jesus. Some people think of Jesus and they think healer, they think savior, they think um, Jesus, I guess, the poet or the teacher. Jesus has always been my grace. Like he's
Mhm.
always been the one who's like, not that it didn't matter, but I do believe that I walk through life going, okay, I know I messed up, but that doesn't matter. I
Mhm.
know I messed up, but it's not that big to Jesus. And other people look at their mess up and they'll fall on their sword over it. They can't be happy because of it. Um, I'm completely different.
Right, but I know, Miriam, I know that there have been times, and I want you to share this with people if you feel comfortable sharing,
Yeah.
but I know that there have been times where you've been tested, times
Yes.
where you have struggled with trusting God, you know what I mean? And I know that, and struggle with just feeling loved in some instances by Him. I know because all of us have gone through those times. Can
Right.
you tell me a little
So,
bit that about?
okay, so I get you. So there
Yeah,
are moments where I think it's definitely not loved by God, but you start thinking, okay, God, I'm thinking I'm doing all the right things. So
yeah.
as I was younger, I used to do things, it was like cause and effect. I used to do things to get something, right? This outcome. And there was a
Right.
point in my adulthood where I would do things and I wasn't getting the outcome. And so I have this thing. I have my daughter here, so she's going to find out a few things about me.
Oh,
Um, but no, it's fine.
okay.
She so there was a point, and I was telling somebody the other day that I always felt very spoiled. And I'm the oldest child. I'm the oldest grandchild, niece, oldest. I was just always the oldest. So when you're the oldest and the first, you got everything. Until I got married. And I married a man who was also the oldest.
Mhm.
And I think what happened in our relationship was I was doing things like, right, I was trying to be an amazing wife, but I wasn't getting the outcome that I thought I would get. Uh,
Mhm.
and so it became hold on, am I doing something like God? Have you stopped? We talked about how the cup overfloweth. Has my cup been filled? Like it was a concern. It is I realized that the battle was greater because now I had to figure out that the person that I'm seeking love from, which is my husband, he
Mhm.
doesn't give the way God gives. and the outcome looked very, very different. So there were, I'm going to talk about, let's say, two of my darkest seasons. Okay. So um, one, I have so when I tried like 2012, I found out that I was pregnant, and I was far along. And this is where you were right with me on this one. I was where I went to my appointment. I was past, I think, the first trimester. I went to the appointment, and they said they couldn't hear the heartbeat, and they said, "I'm sorry, but the baby is it's not viable." Uh, Mind you, fit. This is part of those, like, I'm fit, eating, doing everything. Already had a son, and so I was just like, "What are you talking about? This doesn't make sense. I'm doing all the right things. Um, how does something that was fine, in previous weeks, we were hearing heartbeat, it was strong, not be viable anymore?" So that kind of put me into a spiral, because I'm one of those people that, again, cause and effect. If I do something, then I expect this to come out.
Right.
Um, and they said, and honestly, it is because I had a kid who was around 3, 4 years old. Um, to let it just pass would be a messy. It would feel like I'm giving birth, so it wouldn't make sense. So they said I should come in and get a procedure. Um, and so they said, "Tell us when." It's probably going to be 48 hours. And I just remember just my body changing, like my body was already releasing it. And I got home. I was bleeding right away. So they were like, "Come to the hospital immediately." So I go to the hospital. Um, and I remember just praying like specific prayers that I feel comforted. I wanted to feel protected. I wanted to, like, God, just I'm going to be okay, right? I'm going to come out of this a better person. And what I wasn't prepared for was that my husband also having a reaction to it as well. Like, and when he has a reaction, he kind of just, everything stops for him, and he couldn't move. He couldn't. He literally couldn't understand. It took him a longer time understanding. Now, in real time, we need to make decisions. In real time, I need to get to the hospital. But in his time, real time was, hold on, you just called me up and said, they're like, oh, everything's happening within hours. Like, everything's happening within 5 hours. So he doesn't get time to stop and cry. He doesn't get time to ask any questions. We don't get time to, like, let's go to another OBGYN and get another test, right? I called him up and said, "This is what the doctor is saying. Can you get home?" And he, by the third hour, I call him back and say, I need to leave because I am bleeding. And so I think within that, everything just presses pause. So this is how we react, right? For me, if something serious is happening in our life, I am pressing fast forward. Like, I am moving. For him, it is pause. Let's stop. I gotta think about this. So I am pushing forward. He is stopping. So I get to the hospital. And mind you, he's still home on pause. To me, that reaction was I can't. I need you to run with me. Like, I need a ride to die. I need somebody who's going to be like, "Nope, let's get your stuff. Pick me up off my feet. I'm carrying you to the hospital. We're going to do this together." And it didn't happen that way. I got the procedure. It went through a little bit of recovery. And he was still home. He was still home on pause. And it sounds crazy, but I realized that and it sounds crazy. Like, there's no, it sounds crazy. It felt crazy, and this is where, again, when I talk about loving, um, I felt everything within me go, this is it, right? Like, that was when the mountain crumbled for us, and it was very difficult to trust that if I am going down, and then mind you, I'm thinking about me, right? If I'm going down, if I am in great need, you're not going to show up. It was extremely hard. I am so grateful that you were there when I got home, because I think one of my husband's concerns was, what do we do with our son?
Right.
And I was just like, look, take him to the neighbor's house, let him in, which our neighbors we're all friendly. Take him to our neighbor's house, explain it, but let's get into this cab so I can get to the hospital. Um, um, but he was thinking about his son. He was waiting for you to show up, and we didn't get to have that talk probably like years later when the talk of like that pause, like what
Yeah.
was happening. And I don't think because he couldn't, my husband couldn't have that talk. He didn't know what he was going through. He's never been through something so immediate. He's like, how do you dictate, how should I dictate how he should respond? How do I and for him, he was just like, all I knew was the things that were tangible in front of me were changing, but the only thing that wasn't changing was his son. It was like he wanted to hold on to what wasn't
Mhm.
or what wasn't impacted yet.
Mhm.
And that rode on our backs, as a married couple for years.
Mhm.
Because to me, the way I show up for people, and going back to what you're saying, how I love myself is how I love people. How I give grace is but how I show up for people is how I expect them to show up for me. And that's
Mhm.
not how love, that's not how Jesus or God loves. That's not what grace is, right? Like,
Mhm.
um, and that's what
But
I've had to learn from that season.
right. But I'm curious though, in the midst, because you mentioned how, because some people can struggle in this, Miriam. They can have this idea of, if I perform well, then good things supposed to happen. And if I perform well and good things don't happen, then what does that mean about me and God?
Right. Or
What
what am
did you
I not
do?
doing?
Right. So did that impact how you view God in that case, or your
Uh,
relationship with God?
Yes. Well, yes. For many, many years it did. Not um no, I don't know if it was a different perspective, a different perspective towards God more than a different perspective towards, well, you know what, there is. I
Mhm.
felt like, God, how would you set me up? Like, I felt like it was a setup, right? And I could be extreme, but
Yeah.
I was like, why would you set me up to be alone? And I mean, when I talk about memorizing scriptures, the scriptures, which again, it is funny how when man disappoints, it automatically becomes a God problem.
Yeah.
So when I think, and when this is one of the scriptures that my whole household memorizes, Joshua 1:9, and it says, "Do not be afraid; I will be with you." Like what Joshua had to reiterate to himself through his seasons, um, I had taught to my kids at a very young age. And
Mhm.
it is crazy how the disappointment that I felt with my husband, or I could feel with anyone, automatically becomes an issue with me and God. And God is like, no, I didn't disappoint you.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
oftentimes, how I get through it is honestly the scriptures. Like, I have to look at what I have embedded on my hearts, like what I've written in my
Mhm.
memory, because I go, okay, like this here on earth has nothing to do with his here on heaven.
Mhm.
And then I also have to go back to Jesus and how
Mhm.
often Jesus outperformed people with the fish and the boats and the answering and the bleeding of the woman, and how little, when it came time to his darkest hour, they abandoned, they left him. Uh,
Right. Right.
that is what pulled me together. It
Yeah.
helped me understand that though the ice may break and times may be just uncertain and people are
Mhm.
unwavering in their love and their commitment, God
Mhm.
shows up. Because now that I think about it, I had first of all, so that day, the day of my miscarriage, and
Yeah.
I started to bleed profusely.
Yeah.
Uh, I was like, I don't want to get in a cab. like it just felt so uncomfortable. I didn't want to get in the cab. They told me what to do. They was like, okay, you're bleeding. They helped me to get myself together so that I wouldn't be a mess. Um, I literally walk out my building, and I see my cousin in front of my building, like in her car. She has a BMW, and she's
Mhm.
in her car. But I haven't seen my cousin in like 6 years, and she just came
Mhm.
back from China, and she parked so she can go to Starbucks. She
Oh,
didn't even
wow.
know that was my building. And the first thing I said is, when I already found out that my husband wanted to stay behind and wait for you and he said he was going to be right behind me and go to the hospital. I was like, God, I just don't want to I don't want to be in a stranger's car. That's the first thing I said when I went into the elevator. I said, I don't want to be in a stranger's car. Um, I don't, I just, I don't want to be alone right now, like on the travel there. If I'm stuck in traffic, I don't want to do this by myself. And the fact that I saw my cousin Sade,
Mhm.
she was there and she stared at me and she looked at me and I looked at her. Mm, I couldn't even cry, but because I had already been crying because of this, of
Yeah.
what was happening. Um, I looked at her and I was like, "What?" I said, "When did you get back from China?" And she was like, "2 days ago." Do you live here? And then I said, Sade, can you take me to the hospital? And she was like, cousin, absolutely. I mean, we are like close, close cousins. And
Wow.
so, I mean, we've been talking while she was in China. I just had no idea that she was back and when she was back. And so, when I think about how, and then when I got there, and when I
Wow.
tell you that every single body from the nurse, I had two nurses, an anesthesiologist, um, a doctor, and a recovery nurse, nurse afterwards. All four of those people. This is thing where I like when people know my name and they say
Yeah.
my name correctly.
Mhm.
They're not calling me miss or ma'am. Like there's something personal and intimate when somebody's taking the time to know my name.
Yeah.
And so I'm not like patient one or patient two. So when I walked in, I didn't even have to sit down. They were waiting for me. My doctor was already giving, helping another patient give birth. She goes, I cannot be there, but somebody's going to be there to take care of you. When I tell you, when I walked in and I had like a team of people, and the first thing they said was, "Are you Maryum?" And I said, yes. I didn't feel like I was alone. And
Yeah.
he introduced me. He was like, well, I'm nurse, Bruce. And it was like a male and a female. And it was like, we heard about everything that's going on. You're in the best hands. And then when I
Mhm.
went to the anesthesiologist, and she was like, Maryum Opa. And I was like, oh my goodness. And she was just, and they were introducing me with it's just a weird stuff that makes me feel like whole, right? I'm
Yeah.
feeling very broken. And I was just, and it's till this day, there are times where I go into the hospital. I hadn't needed to go to the hospital ever since, but that level of patient care had not been given to me.
Mhm.
As the dentist, I have to they were pronouncing my name correctly, but they kind of knew who I was. I said,
Right.
I would knew. They was like, no, your doctor explained how'd you look, what you wore that day, because I had just seen her earlier. So she said,
Yeah.
we kind of knew when you walked through the ER that you were the person we were looking for.
Right.
Grateful for my doctor for doing that. Um, so to go back, I loved, I had to learn that Grace, how he handled pain and disappointment was very different. And I couldn't condemn him from that. And when people were like, very much like, oh, that would have been the end of my marriage, or that would have been like, that would have the straw that broke the camel's back. Um,
But you know what, Mary? And let me say this real quick because I think one thing that you mentioned was how the disappointment we could feel for towards someone that has just not stood up or not done the things that you expected them to do in that moment, how you can project that onto God.
mhm,
Right? It's interesting how we can take that disappointment what does towards us and we can project that towards God. And at the same time, what I hear from you is walking to the hospital and your name being said, it helped you to see that God sees you in the
mhm,
midst of all of this stuff
absolutely.
too. right? And
Right.
so it's like even in that state of first the initial disappointment, and I don't know if at that time you thought about being disappointed towards God in that space. I don't think you
No,
did
that came afterwards.
it right afterwards. But I think holding on to the fact that you were seeing and saw helped you through that moment when it came up. Really?
Yes. Which also helped me understand that why I couldn't take it personal with God.
Got
Like
it.
I couldn't, like, have you ever been in hospitality, like concierge, where people kind of just knew who you were, or you came out the hospital and somebody had your name up, and because
Yeah.
you said you don't have to wait for the cab, you don't have to wait for the car service. That's I walked in and people were like, "No, we're here for you." Like everybody's like asking questions. It was a very busy day,
Mhm.
and it was a Friday. Very busy day, Thursday or Friday, and I just felt like somebody got me. Somebody was there with my name, um, and there's that scripture where God speaks about like the waves will not. I kind of like I will never drown. The waves will not sweep me off
Mhm.
my feet because He got
Mhm.
me. There are moments like that you begin to forget in the
Mhm.
darkness. Like begin to forget when you're going through uncertainty and when I'm feeling fearful, or when there's like this mountain that seems bigger than the last mountain that I
Yeah.
overcame, and I don't know how to do this.
Right.
Um,
But
and
the
then
thing is,
go ahead.
but I was thinking the thing is though, in the midst of that though, you are recognizing the darkness, and then you also are recognizing what you're feeling in the midst of it, and then you pull in the scriptures to help you to walk through it. It's
Well,
sort of like
no,
the scriptures
definitely not in the midst. I was definitely all in my feelings. I was
you
angry.
in. Okay, what were you
Okay,
feeling?
I was angry. Like so, in any time of, um, I think it's a level of you don't see the outcome of what God is giving. You don't even remember. You ever like had an impact? Like I remember I only got into one fight when I was a little kid. You forget, everything that my stepfather taught me about how to defend myself in the streets of Brooklyn. When you get that first impact to your face, right?
Mhm.
You forget. You all you're thinking about is the sting. How dare this person put their hands on me? You're thinking
Mhm.
about how bad can it get? Like I'm thinking of is this the worst of it, or does somebody have a brick, does somebody have a
Mhm.
bottle? I think I'm in this point where I am only thinking about the sting and the impact of what I'm going through, and it's only that recovery room did more than just help my body recover. Like, and they told me I couldn't go home until somebody came and got me, so we were waiting for my husband. That recovery room did more than just make sure that my body was okay so that I can get home after the procedure. The recovery helped me then think, God, what now? Because
Mhm.
those hours prior to the surgery, I wasn't thinking, God got me. There was no
Right.
scriptures. There were
Mhm.
no there was none of them. I was really, when I talk about heartbroken, like soul
Mhm.
shattering,
Mhm.
that I was taking my prenatal vitamins. Um I wasn't excessive with anything. My mom
Mhm.
had 9 kids, and you kind of base like, well, it's in my family. No, my mom had 9 kids and never had a problem, right? And didn't, never had a miscarriage. How did this happen, right? Like, what did I do wrong? Um, and so that is still sitting on me. And when people allow to, don't, when I allowed Satan to entertain space in my mind, it
Mhm.
started becoming like little whispers to big, like it was like a big bullhorn of, like God doesn't have you, your husband doesn't have you, you're gonna have to do this by yourself, you know, put on your turbo independent self and take care of yourself from now on.
Mhm.
Um, it caused some trauma.
Yeah. It
Emotional
made you
trauma and physical trauma. And then I didn't see the spiritual part until afterwards. And
Mhm.
that's how typically it always is. I'm when you get in the heat and I don't see, I wish I was spiritually strong enough to know that to use that scripture to help me.
Mhm.
But when I think of this is why God's grace is so important, because I'm glad I don't get condemned while in the midst of my pain. Because if
Mm.
I did, then if that's what you're gonna, if that's the qualifier, then I'm done.
Right.
But
Let me ask you this, Mary, before you go on. What were you feeling? What emotions came up to you when you're laying in there in the midst of the pain and those thoughts was coming at you? What were you feeling?
so in the cab, and not in the cab, in my cousin's car, I remember feeling really. So they had some time. So between my son was in daycare, my son was in daycare. My By the time I left the office, and they were trying to explain to me like the science of it, like it happens when she goes, and they said you should be happy that this, and they was my one doctor said you should be. I know this doesn't feel like a blessing. She didn't say the word blessing, but she goes a fortunate situation. But your body is actually getting rid of something that's not viable. And
Mm.
you wouldn't want to hold it, because what happens when you hold something that is not healthy? I mean, she was talking to me. She was definitely talking. She goes, when your body holds on to something that is not healthy for you, that is dying or already dead,
Mm.
um, and she's giving me, and I think I blocked it out, but she's giving me the symptoms of sepsis, of
Mm.
like stuff that could take me out.
Wow.
And she's like, so she goes, I know what you're feeling, but you don't want your body to be taken out from these circumstances. You got more to live for. And she
Mm.
goes, and we don't know why. And so I'm listening to her. I'm still trying to figure out the why. Because again, if I do something right, something right should happen. Like you don't
Mm.
do things right in life for something wrong to happen.
Mm.
Um, and so and also we also have, I'm in a family that doesn't speak. We have, a lot of us have large families, there's many people that have many children, and there's never been a word of miscarriage, never. So I know I did something wrong.
Mm.
um and so I think I felt dumb. I felt like
Did you feel defeated?
I didn't feel defeated until I got into my cousin's car, and I don't even know
Mm.
what defeat meant. But
Mm.
you felt like I don't have nothing else to fight with. I have nothing else to battle with. I felt very um like I felt my body being, but also I was also losing a lot. I was losing blood, right?
Yeah.
Like there was there was reasons for it, but I felt defeated once I sat in her car, and I wanted to sob, but I couldn't even generate the tears to do
Mm.
it.
Mm.
And at this point, when I become defeated in anything, I also start pulling up worldly weapons, right? I start thinking of things that I'm going to do for myself and how I don't need anybody. And
Mm.
um, I no longer fight with God's weapons,
Mm.
if that makes sense. Like when people, I don't like my back being against the wall, so I'm just going to come out just fighting aimlessly. And
Right.
with my words, with my thoughts, I would start being mean to people. Um, and then first started with me, right? I was mean to myself. I was starting beating myself up. Then I felt shame, a lot of shame. Like, how do I tell my mother this?
Mm.
Um, and how do ex- how can I even explain this to people? As if I I owed it to people. And,
Yeah.
like the things that the mind tells you to do.
Yeah.
Um, and it wasn't. I think it was a lot of it was just Satan just really making um, pressing his thumb down on me so that I can stop thinking about God and stop
Right.
trying to grow through this.
Right.
Until the hospital concierge, and then I felt like a superstar. I know this is crazy, but I think about it, and I'm just like, the way I walked through there, and you know how you have to go through the window and say, hey, my name is, I didn't have to, like, they were there by the window, and it was like, are you Maryum? And I was like, yes, I am. It was like, come right down. They said, we got her. Like that level of like, it was
Mm.
crazy. I mean,
Mm.
there were people who were in pain, but no, they were like, no, we got her. Her doctor called us ahead of time. And
Mm.
need I say, and which is, it means not much of anything, but all of them were people of color. They were all black, an
Mm.
anesthesiologist, a black nurse, a black surgical nurse, a black doctor. And the reason why they, because representation, I don't want to have to explain. Like, I guess they kind of felt
Mhm.
like you're good, you know.
Yeah.
So many
You feel
times
protected. You feel protected.
medical procedures, you're just thinking, do you understand what is happening to me? Do you like, is it,
Mhm.
um, and so, but also you start believing lies. I remember sitting in the car, and the car probably the ride took probably like 18 to 20, 22 minutes. Uh,
Mhm.
I started thinking like, I wonder if I have uterine cancer. I wonder if I like things that
Mhm.
had no business being in my head, but you start really thinking the worst because you've no
Mhm.
longer holding on to God. Like the
Yeah.
worst, and that's not something that I naturally do. I don't think the worst. I'm always
Mhm.
thinking that, okay, we this is gonna be, it's not that bad.
Right.
Um,
But I think in the midst of it, when you said, I noticed I started thinking the worst. What was your way of being aware of it and then working through that? Like, tell me that process if you can, and briefly, like your way of seeing it, working through that. Or did someone have to help you walk through that?
you helped me walk through it. I mean, afterwards, that moment, I think, when was it Elisha who was running and he felt like he was the only one,
Yeah.
and he's like, they killed all the prophets. He was very extreme. He was like, they killed all the prophets and now they're after me. And then he
Right.
went to go hide and he was like, I might as well die right here. I was in
Mhm.
that state, right? Like, there's nothing left for me. Mind you, I have a son at home. I have a husband. I have sisters, brothers. There is a level of, I was in an Elisha state of mind, and I had to be by myself. And that was that recovery room where, it wasn't through the storm, it wasn't through the fire, but it was through the whisper that he heard Jesus. I mean, he heard
Right.
God. I think being alone allowed me, but allowed me to realize that God is still working on my behalf. He's still working behind the scenes. I don't see it. I definitely don't feel it. But when God whispered for Elisha to get up, like, get your act together. There are people,
Mhm.
there are prophets and people waiting, and then they're just in other places. Um,
Mhm.
Kind of like, stop being so extreme. Yeah,
Mhm.
like, but also real. He knew people were after him, right? Like, it wasn't his his fear wasn't false. Like, my
Yeah.
fear was real,
Yeah.
but it wasn't it. It wasn't the only thing that was happening in my life at the moment. And I
Mhm.
think what I had to do was remember that there are greater things happening. And there
Mhm.
are greater things happening behind the scene, but there are actually greater things happening in that moment that I just haven't been able to hold on to because I just was so afraid and I felt abandoned.
Yeah.
Uh, I even felt abandoned by the baby. I was just like, I thought it was so
Mhm.
weird, to go through a death or a miscarriage and not be able to have a reason why, like, not
Mm.
a solid reason why, um, can knock you off kilter.
Wow. Wow. If you could share something to people who are maybe listening to this right now who have experienced miscarriages or that type of loss, what would you say to them to help them in this moment? Or just to give them some hope?
If you Ephesians 6:10 to 18, right? It says, and the reason why it says that, I love there in verse 11, it says that you take your stand against Satan's schemes. Like, there's certain things that Satan can take from you, right? The world can take from you, people can take from you. That scripture empowers me to go, no, now you can take your stand. Oftentimes I see people at the bottom, rock bottom. They have um, fallen and they don't know how to stand. They don't know who to lean on. I've realized that I would tell people that you need, let me say, three good things in life, right? At any point. you need good scriptures. You need scriptures that doesn't die out in inspiring you.
Right.
Like they, no matter how you hear it, when you hear it, it gives you like that jolt. You need that scripture. You need good scriptures. Um, and you need to be able to say it, memorize it. Ephesians 6 is mine, 10 to 18, because it teaches me how to fight. And I'm a fighter. I'm a dirty fighter. Like I'm a Brooklyn fighter. Um,
Mhm.
I but I had to learn that if I'm gonna make it to heaven, I need to fight differently. And if
Mhm.
I'm going to teach my kids how to fight, but I also want to fight for others who don't know how to fight, I want to fight the way Jesus fought, with the level of wisdom and love that kind of makes people have to look at you weird. Like
Mhm.
you reaching out again? You're gonna try again? Like these, often people think that they're not worthy, that the people they're working with are not worthy, and I truly believe God has put me here to help me put value, show people that there is value in how they live and why they're living. So
Right.
you need good scriptures. You need two good friends. And I'm
Mhm.
talking about friends who y'all may not agree with everything, but y'all agree with how to fight. Y'all agree with who you're fighting for. And
Mhm.
if we're fighting to get to heaven, or we're fighting to make, our place a better place, then you're always, and when one, and this could be, in a spouse, but in a best friend, you just need two good people in your life, because one will always go through something. Like when one is going through something, you have somebody else. When you're going through something, there is a balance. Great relationships, you're never operating on 100%, right? But when I give 30, I only have 30% in my spirit. I know that my girl Malika is coming with the 70%, right? If I know that I only have 80% and my girlfriend Christine
Mhm.
only has 20, then we're going to do this together,
Yeah.
right? When
Yeah.
we show up with 100% of
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, and you need a really good vision. And I
Mm.
always have to check my vision and my purpose. So you need good scriptures, good people around you, like solid people, but also good vision. Because
Mhm.
very, I walked around in my adult life, um, quite not aimless, but living out what other people wanted to live. Like I think people who love me and gravitate, I just start doing what other people like. Okay, let me do this job. Let me do this job. I really didn't come into my career or realize that what my vision for myself was until in my 40s. And
Mhm.
you can, if you're in your 20s, if you're in your teens, you can develop that vision much earlier, but that
Mhm.
has to be from understanding your relationship with God.
Right.
Because you're not just walking around aimless, just doing good deeds. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you will feel like you will often feel depleted and use your energy used because you're not doing God's purpose.
Yeah.
You're you're walking with other people's purpose in mind.
Right.
And I've done that for so long. So I would
Right.
tell this, because when you have your vision, then you kind of know how to operate. When you have
Mhm.
your scriptures, that becomes your formula into which you operate. And when you
Mhm.
have your people, you know that you're not by yourself.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
exactly right. And I tell people, I tell this to my clients all the time, and I even think I even mentioned this on the podcast. I'm like, you need your three. Because Jesus had his three. I'm like, Jesus had Peter, and James, like, you need your three. Like when you're in the middle of the garden and you then at your vulnerable space, who's gonna be there? They may have been
think
asleep.
about that. That is true.
They may have been asleep though, Mary. They were asleep, but they were there. You know what I mean? So it's like, who gonna be your three? You know what I'm saying? So, and I thank you so much for sharing that, because I think it's important for us first to be honest about where we really are, and to recognize where we are, being aware of what's happening in this phase. And then also at the same time, when you become aware and being honest, it's like, okay, now let me talk to God. But if I'm feeling distant from God, let me be honest about that too.
Right.
Like, where am I feeling right now with God, and be vocal about that, and having those trusted people in your life that you can be vocal about, that can direct you back to the scriptures, back to what God has said about himself and who he really is. And then from there, pray with you. because
Mhm.
it talks about the power of the prayer of righteous person is powerful and effective. So we need people to pray with us. And at the same time, I love the fact that you just said the vision and asking God to restore it if you've even lost it in the midst of that dark space.
Right.
Asking God to give you the dream that He's dreamed for you before you even born. That was a prayer that I prayed. I mean, when I was in that dark space too, so it's like in all of this, walking in intimacy with God is aligning yourself with God, walking with other people who will walk with you towards God, and using those scriptures to help you to really hear God's voice and see Him for who He is. Now, to wrap up, how can people reach out to you? Like if they
Oh,
want to.
oh, if people want to reach out to me, they can. I am a career developer and strategist. So, if you have, and this is what I do for my clients, I help them regain their vision for their purpose in their professional world, other than just creating resumes and professional packages um, for individuals and companies. But if they want to reach out to me, they can contact me at sheisopa@gmail.com. And I let me tell you something. I agree because um, there are so many amazing people in the Bible. And I even look at David through the Psalms where his vision
Yeah.
is often lost because of what is happening when his son was attacking him, when he also didn't have a miscarriage, but he lost his son with Bathsheba.
Yeah.
And he implored God, like, God, I understand. Like, I'm not the perfect being, but I need you, right? And so having that vulnerability and being not being afraid to be called higher when you're vulnerable. I think people they want to be vulnerable, but then what happens once I'm vulnerable? What are people going to use? How are people going to use it? Um,
Mhm.
you can't be afraid of that. You got to
Mhm.
just be open for God to take that vulnerability and turn it into building blocks so that you can become a better individual. Often, I do believe people walk around being afraid to be great
Yeah.
because with greatness, there is more to be demanded from you, and people don't know if they can rise to occasion. You don't need to worry about that because if you
Yeah.
have God, you will rise to the occasion because it's not about you, it's about Him. And
Right.
once you kind of let go of that, um, you I've done amazing things. I've done amazing things. And I have amazing children. After that miscarriage, the year later I had my daughter.
Yeah.
Um,
Miss Marley.
yes. And
Mhm.
so it became and I was like, I don't want to ever have kids again. Like, this is it. I don't want my body to ever go through this again. And God had other plans. That wasn't His vision. And
Yeah.
she is definitely a blessing. So, yeah, so she is opa@gmail.com. And
Mhm.
you can also find me on my website is the Opa Service, the Opa Service, www.theopaservice.com. And that's my business website where you can contact me as well.
That's awesome, girl. And thank you so much for joining me on this podcast, on Abundantly Love podcast. And you're gonna come back. I'm gonna have to have you back because there's so much more we could talk about. But I thank you so much for just your vulnerability and being transparent too.
I
And
love you.
just,
I
I
love
love
your
you too.
friendship. I love I mean, you have been, when I say, God, how do I get through? I just want to say this is crazy. This is not crazy, but this is it. So you know how like that concierge service, and then when I remember walking through my door that day, and my couch was against the wall, and the lights were out, and I walked through the door, and I just kind of like fumbled, and just cried, and that was probably the first time I was able to cry. My husband brought me home, and then I saw you,
Mhm.
and just the reassurance of that you were in my house, my son was taken care of, you came and you gave me this big hug. You didn't say anything. You didn't say
Mhm.
anything. You just gave me this hug, and you just took your bag and you just left. And I just felt like God was like, I I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. And I just remember seeing just that day, like how that day was not complete. Like you were the bookend to
Mm.
like it was the worst day of my life, but
Yeah.
every part of it had a blessing. And I thank you. I knew never to let you go. But
Forever friends, girl. I love you so much.
yes, but yes,
Well,
invite me
girl,
back and we'll
I
speak.
will. You will. You coming back. You will coming back. And so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up. And I'm gonna let you go. But I love you so much, girl. And I'll
Me
talk
too.
to you soon. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, y'all, this episode, I hope this episode was helpful to you. And if anything stirred up in you from hearing Maryam's story, please reach out to me too if you want to talk at Miss Gwendolyn at abundantlylovepodcast.com. And if you want any reference to therapists, if you're in the state of Tennessee, I can walk with you here. And if you're in another state, I can give you information for there. But if you're ready to grow deeper in your relationship with God, I invite you to join my Growing Deeper in Intimacy with God webinar. Together, we'll explore how to overcome spiritual roadblocks, hear God's voice more clearly, and develop a closer walk with Him. Visit loveabundantlyministry.com to learn more and register. You can give me your email from there and I'll reach out to you, give you the link for the webinar. I love to have you join us. If this conversation, again, stirred something in you, again, please reach out to me. And my ministry is Love Abundantly Ministry. My counsel press Love Abundant Counseling, and we will help walk with you if you desire for us to walk with you and help you overcome emotional and different things that you may be dealing with emotionally, and help you to grow spiritually and have a deeper intimacy with God. Now, seek God, y'all. Seek Him with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Seeking Him does not mean, or seeking help basically too, does not mean that you're a failure. It's wisdom, courage, and self-love when you want to seek help. In the midst of you seeking help, know that God is with you in the midst of all of it, y'all. You don't have to face truth alone. You don't have to face all difficulties that you may be going through right now alone. Reach out to someone in your life, a safe friend in your life, someone that you feel is safe to talk with. And if you want to reach out to us, you can. Until next time, keep pursuing God's heart. Keep pursuing God's heart. And remember, you are deeply loved.
You are, you are.